All right. Well, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. If you could just share a little bit about yourself and the current work you're doing right now.
Yeah, so my name's Sophie Jones. I'm so happy to be here. I'm a business coach and breathwork facilitator. I'm a five times entrepreneur, so I know the ins and outs of success, but I'm also a daughter, I'm a friend, I'm a Christian, I'm somebody in recovery. I have a really dynamic story, and I just love helping people create businesses and lives intentionally in a way that brings them genuine joy and fulfillment and a lot of success. I just don't think we have to sacrifice one for the other. And so that is what I do and a little bit about who I am. And I'm super excited to be here.
Yay, awesome. Oh my gosh. Okay. So when you say that, it's just, I think that it's so important for us to dive into that, what that looks like, and you're a successful entrepreneur right now, but what did it look like before you got into, your own business? Like, take us back a little bit. Like, what were you doing that led up to like, hey, this isn't it? Like, I
Yeah.
thought this was going to be the thing because I hear that a lot. It's like I checked the boxes. Like I went to school, I got the degree that I thought was going to make me successful. I'm
Yeah.
married, I have the kids, I have whatever, whatever, whatever. That those external validations you thought were going to be the thing that makes you happy.
Yeah.
And it's just not it. Like, can you take us back to what was that like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I didn't go a super traditional route in some ways. I've been my own boss pretty much my whole life. So I would, for the most part, I waited tables, this or that. I'm from Salt Lake City, Utah. I was wild as the wind growing up, and a lot of my friends were like in the snowboarding industry. And in my early 20s, I had some things happen. I moved home, and a lot of my friends were coming out of college, getting entry level jobs, making $40,000 a year. And I was just like, I'm sorry, no. And so I ended up going and getting my real estate license, and God just put the right people in my life, and I had mentors, and I actually hired my first business coach at 23. And so I've started and scaled four real estate businesses in three different states. And then, but this is where my this is not it moment happened. So it happened a little bit later. I was 31 at the time. I just turned 38. Or maybe I was 32, but some life events had happened. So I was successful. I was pretty. I was bad and bougie. I didn't want kids at the time. I'm living in Houston and I'm drinking too much. I'm full of anxiety. I cannot escape myself. And I'm like, what is going? I did everything right. I did everything right by like the boss babe
Mm-hmm.
blueprint.
Yeah.
And I was wildly unhappy. And man, it was one of those things where you kind of feel gutted because I said this on my podcast last night, and I'm so happy we're talking about it. It was like at one point in time, I was spending like $4,000 to $5,000 per month on coaching, on therapy, on energy workers, on anyone that would somehow tell me something that would allow me the permission and also just start to understand what was going on a little bit in my subconscious. Because work harder, do more, was just like not, that was just not going to be the solution at the time. And so, what that was like for me, I knew I could do one thing, and that was quit drinking because I was just not, that was just not an option for me anymore. And that allowed me to open up and get curious. And, you certainly don't have to be like, oh, I'm going to quit, being a mom, I'm going to quit being married. But there's things that you can get curious about, like, oh, I'm constantly doing these things and they're really not bringing me joy. And as soon as I was able to do that, I found breath work, and we'll get into that a little bit later, but it allowed things to open up for me, and I could really start asking myself some deeper questions when I had a different kind of nervous system, when I had more information. I tell people, the mind that created the problem is not going to be, that's the same mind that's going to try to get you out of it. And so we have to start shifting inside and giving ourselves the permission to go. A lot of my clients could be my parents' age, and they have a beautiful house and a great 401k and nice cars, and they have all this guilt. They're like, I did everything that I should have, and I'm really genuinely unhappy and unfulfilled. And they don't really want to share that and express that with a lot of people because, we open ourselves up for judgment. Where do we find safe places in society today, right? So all of those things to say, that happened for me when I was, in my early 30s. And then it took me several years to pivot out of real estate and get into coaching and find breath work and start really, you know, unlearning some things in a way that I could do it and also understand that it had nothing to do with my character. It had nothing to do if I was a good person or not. Like we create narratives about ourselves and then we just cling to those identities. And I'm like, hey, I don't think you like that anymore. And they're like, no, who am I without this? And it's like, well, that's such a good question. I think that person's trying to get in touch with you by making you unhappy. So like, let's do something with that, right?
Yeah. I mean, they're knocking at the door, they're banging
Yeah.
the door down, they're ringing the doorbell, they're like,
They're catching the house
hello.
on fire, you know? It's
Yes.
like,
Oh my gosh, that's so true. And it's interesting that you said that because right now I work in HR and I'm finding that we have a population of people who are getting ready to retire, right? And they're having a really hard time because work has been their identity for their entire life. That really just hit me just recently, just like yesterday. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like very sad for me to see that, because they're like, what am I going to do without my job? What am I going to do without work? Because this is all I know. Like there's so much more to you than just the job that you've been doing for 50 years or whatever.
yeah. Well, and here's the thing too, even if you're in a 9 to 5 or you're creating your own thing, if you're not doing it intentionally, then life is designed to have us change identities as we go, right? Like when you become a mom or you get married
Mhm.
but or you retire, those are kind of that's unavoidable. And I think that's how it's structured. But there are things where you don't want to get to the end of it and not have anything after. And it's like, and those people are people where it's like, we're not creating intentionally. You just lived in autopilot. I just created a post about this. And it's like that autopilot feels safe in the moment, but it's kind of like the analogy with the frog. If we put the frog in the water and we just turn the heat on slowly, the frog won't jump out because it will just burn, like it will cook to death. But if you put it in boiling water, it's going to jump out. And so people don't realize over time they're just anesthetizing themselves to what's normal, what's conventional. And even if their person's knocking, banging on the windows, burning the house down, I think a lot of society has programmed you just in and of the same of like, no, no, don't pay attention. This is the route that we're supposed to go. But I really feel like with our generation, we're seeing that shift quite a bit where people are going, wait a minute, like we want to make sure we're online, mind, body, spirit, whatever that looks like, and really moving towards who we desire to become, not just existing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find too that it's like you said, holding on to these identities. It's like, or these whatever other people's opinions of you.
Oh,
You know what I mean? Like it's like, okay, well, they think this way of me or whatever, so that's who I am. Like they're holding on to it as if it's fact. And it's like
yeah.
that doesn't have to be your reality. It's like such a huge wake up call when you realize that. It's so freeing to know like I get to decide. I get to decide who I
Yeah.
am.
Yes. And even more with that is what helped me do some of that stuff is with the breath work was like it was safe. It wasn't like I had to go to Costa Rica and take ayahuasca for 2 weeks and then come, I was like, I don't know, but and no shade to people that have done it. I
Yeah.
think that's great, but it allowed me to start to feel safe in my and figure out who I was just in my own body and away from my thinking mind. Like, really connected to source or to God or to your intuition, whatever you want to call it, to a place of peace. Because if
Mhm.
we're in a place of peace, we know who we are. But if we're in our mind, we're always trying to adjust, plan, decide what we should be to anyone in the room at any given time. It's really hard to move through life and be really authentic and present if we're in our mind and we're trying to, create who we should be with each person based on what they think we should be to them.
That's so good. Yeah, I love that. I mean, okay, so once you started realizing that, like, what was one of your first steps to kind of get out of, move into that life on purpose, that like, I want to feel good about what I'm doing and this isn't it? Like, what did you start
Yeah.
to do?
The first thing was just to really like hold myself in that, to say, it's okay. This is normal. Like nothing bad's going to happen, because I think change can feel so scary. And I've lived in, 8 states. I've been married twice. I lived out of the country for 2 months last year. Like, let me tell you, I don't mind change, but it's change on my terms, kind of, versus, okay, this is an identity change. And I was so tied to, this one thing. So I had to just really give myself some time to sit in it and go, okay, instead of like, hurry, we're going to change this. And, it's like, no. And then what I started to do is I started to ask myself certain questions. And I talked about this last night too, where it's like, okay, not what can I achieve, but like, who do I want to be? How do I want to feel most days? And at the time, I was going through such like a massive healing, that it was just like, I just want to feel accepted. I want to feel like there are good people around me that I can trust. I want to feel, I'm going through another massive transformation, right? I just lost my mom. I just started my walk with, God in the last year or so. So it's like, now it's like, who do I want to be? It's like, okay, I want to be somebody that's, has values that match, who they are on the inside. So I think asking yourself, like, who do I want to be? Who do I want to be as a wife, as a mom? Who do I want to be in the workplace? Who do I want to be as a leader, as a boss? Because you can start to go, and some people will be like, well, I don't know. Like, I love those people. I'm like, oh, I love that for you. I'm like, but if you had to guess, like if you had to
Yeah.
just take a wild guess, because let me give you an analogy, because you brought up being a mom, you might want to be the mom that has somebody come pick your kids up after school 4 days a week, and you leave work an hour early and you go get a workout in and grab like a little snack for yourself. But you might think that being the mom, what would people think? I mean, I have so many friends that it's like, the mom's world is real, where it's
Yeah.
like, okay, well, if I have these moms helping me pick up, then I need to pick up for them. And then we're doing this. And then what about this and this? And it's like, and then if I have to approach my husband and we've got to work about finances. But if you had that hour to yourself 4 days a week, who would you be because of that? And it's like, oh, well, I would actually probably be much more loving. I'd have a
Absolutely.
lot more to give, right? But identities and shoulds are super strong. And so we don't go into this work thinking there's not going to be resistance. There is resistance, right? But we have that desired knocking that's saying, hey, there's a different way to do this. And then what I do with clients is, professionally, they usually come to me on a professional level, but there's usually a lot of personal stuff we're working through.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how do we allow you the space within your nervous system to feel safe, and the action items for you to start orchestrating a very intentional business in life?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And the question of like, how do you want to feel? I think that just stops me in my tracks, because it's like, oh, hmm, I get to choose that too. I get to feel good. Like I get to be happy.
Yeah.
I get to like, and how can you do that today? I think that that's so important too. It's like you can sprinkle that joy in, even if your current circumstances aren't 100% what you want them to be, or what you're dreaming of. I think there's opportunity every day to start being a little bit more intentional with your time, with your
Oh,
energy. Start
yeah.
sprinkling in the joy, like, oh, I could actually go for a walk outside and just get some sunshine. Like you can do things right now that will help put you in that state of mind.
Absolutely. And we talk about those as pattern interruption, right? So if you even like, a lot of my clients early on, I'm like, hey, well, you're walking every morning. You're going to box for me when you're on your walk, and it's either a book or music you love. And they're like, I'm like, this isn't a negotiable, because
Yeah.
it's something that you give a little space to, where you start to have time to connect with yourself, right? Where you're like, oh, and it's all about that connection to safety and self, where you're like, hey, my circumstances aren't what I would want. But if I can find safety and joy and genuine fulfillment, then I'm gonna have more knowledge than I am if I'm anxious, running behind, screaming at everyone to get out of the house. It's like, we're not in a place to receive, and we're not also in a place to serve. We're in a place of just responding and hopefully keeping everyone alive. And we have days like that, but we don't want to be living from that and creating an intentional life from that, because we all know those people too, where you see them probably in HR or something walking at you and you're like, whoa, whoa, you know?
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah. That's so good to like just have the conversation and make sure that people are aware that, you can make a change in your life. And like one of my biggest missions is I want every woman out there to know that they're capable and they have the power within themselves to create the life that they actually love. And what breaks my heart is to hear those stories of people, that are on their deathbed and they're having all of these regrets and they're like, I wish I was just brave enough to like live live a life that I love. Like I wish I was brave enough to like just go try the thing, like just go and do whatever it is that they're passionate about. Like just do more of that, be more intentional with their time. And so I mean that like really gets to me because obviously we don't know how much time we have on this earth. So it's like you have to use every day and just show up for your life. Be courageous enough to like just say the thing, do the thing, like be yourself.
Yeah.
Just be yourself. Know yourself enough to like show up, authentically and live a life that you love. Live a life that you are proud of and not waiting, because
I
that's another
love
thing. It's
that.
like another thing is like waiting, like, oh, when the kids are off to college, I've even heard this from friends, like, oh, when the kids are out of school, out of the house, I will find myself again. Like I don't even know who I am because my identity is just all wrapped in mom. And that breaks my heart too, because I'm like, no, be yourself now, because you need to show your kids that they can still be true to themselves if they become a parent, right?
Right. Yeah. So much. I mean, I'm going to try not to cry talking about moms, but my mom found out she was sick and 39 days later she passed. So
Oh,
like I'm living that like, and she was beautiful and vibrant and she had, she lived full out bold, she
mhm.
had a colorful life, but like she really ended it on a high note and there weren't a lot of regrets,
Oh,
and
that's so good to hear.
man, it's like, yeah. And my sister and I were very bold women. There's some of that we get from our mom and dad where it's like, okay, we have to do a little healing, right? Need some stability too. But the point being is it's like seeing that firsthand where you watch someone get a diagnosis and you think, oh, whatever. And then they're just gone. And you're like, whoa, what just happened? And I think people don't really realize, we always think it's out there until it happens. And then you realize, no, I really do. I mean, if that's done anything for me, it's just strengthened this kind of foundation that God laid for me in the last year, where it was like, I really do need to be living a life that I'm proud of. Like so much of what my clients and even just me, it was way less of living for kids or this or that. It was like, I need to like clean up these self-sabotaging false narratives that keep me in a place that I'm not happy, but I look good on the outside. And like, if I have to like let things go, man, it just, that was all of my year last year, right? Going through a divorce. And I joke, it was like my eat, pray, love year. I traveled, did all these things, but really, it was like I had a lot of things stripped away and I just had to be okay with it because I knew that like I was really laying the foundation for who I was. And we don't have to like go through a divorce or lose a parent. These are big things, but there could be people listening going, wow, I'm knocking on the door of that. And I don't know who I'm going to be on the other side of that. And I think the more that you can ask yourself, how do I want to feel? Who do I want to be in my community? That's a big one. When I'm like, who do you want to be to others around you? People can tell me, I want to be a good friend. I want to be this. I want to be somebody that you can call and count on. I want to be this. And then I'll say, well, how are you not being that today? Oh, well, I'm always busy and I'm not prioritized. Like, okay, so what do we need to do? Right. So I
Yeah.
think there's questions we can ask ourselves to get redirected and refocused so that God forbid something like that does happen, that you just go, wow, I'm so glad I'm on path and I'm being intentional versus like, okay, I worked 50 years. Who am I now? Or this happened. And it's just interesting.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I'm so sorry to hear about your mom. And
That's okay.
I can't even imagine, but I'm so glad that, that you were able to just be there,
Yeah.
and experience like being
Well,
with
and
her.
witness somebody that didn't have that story.
Yes,
Like
that's
that,
amazing.
that was like, I'm going out on a high note and I didn't leave any stone unturned and I know who I am. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
So,
No, I think that that's amazing. And I think that it probably, she led by example in you and your sister's
yeah.
lives, right? Like, and that's got to be so helpful too, to have such a powerful influence, to watch.
Yeah. Well, and I want to speak to this too. I think the reason people don't do that is because of fear. So it's like, I'll do it after the kids, or I'll figure out who I am after that. And it's like, okay, yes, but like, if you knew a little bit more about yourself, you'd probably be enjoying the experience so much more. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not about, we're not here to survive. And yes,
Yeah.
there are seasons of survival, but like in reality, giving yourself the opportunity to know yourself, to take the risks, to say the scary thing. I mean, a lot of my clients are like, they come to me and there are things that they have been wanting to say in their marriage for a very long time. And I'm like, well, guess what we get to do this week, and learning to communicate with love and learning to communicate who you are so that you can actually, I think that's the thing too, is people don't have the tools and then they get frustrated because they try and then they're like, it didn't work. Just go back to what it is. And at a later date and time, it's somehow going to be better. And it's back to that intentionality. It just doesn't work that way. Like you have to, I had a client all the time. She was from Tennessee and she's like, you got to suck the sour to get to the sweet. And I was like, yes, that's right.
Oh, I love that. I've never heard of that before. That's
Yeah.
cute. That's awesome. But so true.
Yeah.
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 Uh,
So we have to quit being afraid of what the outcome's going to be. Cause like, right. Do you want to get at the end of your life and be afraid, or do you want to do it now?
yeah, do it now. It's like that's been my whole journey recently is, this is about grabbing onto that bravery that's inside of you. It's there. You have to
Yeah.
fight for it. You have to dig for it sometimes. Sometimes it's not easy. It's not just something that everyone has naturally. Like sometimes it takes a lot of hard work, a lot of inner work to get you to a place
Hmm.
of feeling confident enough to just step out and maybe be the one
Totally.
that's saying something that's like not the norm or like not totally accepted, or you're the only one that's like raising your hand and being like, no, I don't agree. It's scary.
Yeah,
It can be really scary.
totally. And this is why we were talking about this right before we hit record, more places where women are safe, like they're on a mission, but they're also safe. They're inspiring. They're places that you're like, so who do you want to be in your community? Well, we need communities of women that are like, I see you. I believe in you. I know that is so scary. Call me right after you do it. And I'll be here. Right.
Yeah,
And just really holding each other to these new standards so that we can have incredible identities, not just for us, but for, our children or for those that see, I always want to be somebody. I have nieces and nephews, but like specifically nieces, and they're like, I'll bring them on like a branding shoot, and they're so cute because they're from Utah and they're Mormon, and it's like a whole vibe over there. But I'm like, hey, just anything's possible, just to see and be loving and kind. And I think too with social media these days, that like who I used to be too. So maybe I'm susceptible to it, right? Like that bad and bougie, what you are, your value is on the outside, not on the inside. What you look like on the outside is far more important, whatever that lifestyle. I don't care if it's the white picket fence, the white Suburban, and your white mocha from Starbucks every morning, and you just, in your perfect white jumpsuit that you drop your kids off at, like whatever. Or if it's like, you're the prettiest girl at the nightclub, it's like, those are really, really strong. And it's like, and it makes you feel like you have to hold things in and that it's not safe to share. And then we have to hold up this perfect like identity or have this perfect image. And in reality, I think having safe human spaces of ambitious women that really actually care is a huge thing that we all need.
absolutely. So yeah, so I can't wait. I'm gonna start hosting more in-person women's events. And it's really for that connection. And it's like, I'm happy. I'm so happy that like we have the technology where we can connect
Yeah.
online and it's amazing. But there is a different vibe whenever you're in the room and you have that energy connection and you're able to just share and be there and really try to understand what other women are going through. And you're so
Mhm.
right. It's like we need to have that community of women that just understand, like just trying to start a business and be an entrepreneur and just knowing like, okay, I know
Yeah.
where you're coming from. Like I get it. I've
Yeah.
been there. And wanting the connection and the friendship over the competing and that toxic vibe, just like wanting to
Yeah.
help each other out, like grab hands and be like, we're on this journey together. We will figure
Yeah.
this out. Yeah. So I want that. And what's crazy is um I learned early on whenever I started my business is that it's not usually your family and your friends that are always the best support system for an entrepreneur
Totally.
because
Yeah.
they don't
No.
get it. And it's out of a
Yeah.
place of love most of the time. They're just their own insecurities are showing up because they're scared and they would never
Totally.
do something that you're doing and it seems so crazy. And so that was actually pretty hard for me. I'm like, "Oh my gosh." And you
Yeah.
think that they'd show up in a way, but they just don't get it sometimes. So you need those friends that get it.
I say entrepreneurship is a real calling. Like I actually last year I fired like 70% of my business because I was working with when I first started, I was working with like all experienced either entrepreneurs, professionals, or executives. Then I started getting in the online coaching world, going in masterminds, and a lot of people in that space were like, you could coach me. So I was like, I learned a valuable lesson last year. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. So then I
Mm-hmm.
started catering to those people. And then last year, that was like 70% of my business. And I just let my mastermind go at the end. I was like, I won't be enrolling in this again. I had so much personal stuff going on. And I was like, and then my mom and everything was just wild. But the point being was early entrepreneurship, those first 3 years are wild. And like, it's going to teach you more about you than you have ever known. And like, you just need a small and mighty crew, but you also have to realize like, I tell people there is no shame if it's not for you, like at all, because we just
Mm-hmm.
also look online and it's like, you can just do it all and it's so easy. And I'm like, sweet thing, have a seat. Love you. I love you enough to be honest with you. This is really going to bring up things, whatever it is. And that's okay because the reward and the payoff is so great. But having just even like, I have some girlfriends that are in the business that I'm just like, this is happening. And they're like, oh, yeah, that sucks. It's not like you should rethink your decisions or it's like, yeah, that's the worst. And I'm like, right? And they're like, yeah. And just someone to be like in the moment with me, not trying to fix
Yeah.
it, but just sympathizing. And then they're like, I know you're going to figure it out. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
It
you're
just
gonna get
makes a
through this.
huge
Yeah,
difference.
for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. Okay, so tell me a little bit more about the work you're currently doing as a coach.
Yeah.
And how do people even recognize like, hey, I think I need to go get a coach. Like, how do they even recognize they're at that point of like, I need support, I need this change, I
Yeah.
need to like figure out my purpose in life, and how do they get there?
Well, I think they're thinking all of those thoughts. you know, I need support. I'm unhappy. I think a lot of people are frustrated and scattered. It's like they're
Mm-hmm.
trying to hit goals or they have dreams that they want to create and they don't see the space, the opportunity, or the how. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like you have the vision or you have the idea or the next level, but it's like you're at capacity as it is. So where are you going to do that to find someone with the expertise? There's a million coaches for what you're looking for, right? Me specifically, and what I do is I'm a business coach, but I'm also a breathwork facilitator. So a lot of clients come to me with external goals, but we're doing that from the inside out. So success is like a 90% inside job. Your actions got you to the place that you're at right now. So it's like we have to start shifting beliefs, identities, so that you can become the person that actually achieves the thing. So a lot of my clients are like, I don't want to go to therapy for 20 years and process, but I do have things going on. There's things behind the scenes, whether your personal life isn't well, your relationships, or you don't like your job, you don't like your boss, because some are professionals. And you're like, I know it can be different. I feel frustrated. I feel sad. I feel discouraged. I feel like I should be farther than I am. I don't know why. I don't know what's going on, but you are, most of my clients are very driven, that high achiever kind of type A, and they want somebody that's going to hold them to a higher standard, but that is also soft with them on the backside, right? I joke with people, and I shouldn't do this. I'm sure eventually someone's going to like come for me with this statement and I don't care, but I'm like, whatever. But I'm kind of like your aunt, right? Like, that you can tell your aunt anything, but you also know like your aunt can like, she could slap you when you're, not slap you, but like swat your bum when you were little, right? Like she like had the authority to also do that, right? Like, or like throw a flip flop at you. Like, not that I had that experience, but she had the ability to also discipline, not like your mom, but she also, you would tell her anything, right? So she was the one that was going to keep it honest with you. And so it's kind of like that real, genuine, honest. And I don't mean like slap. I'm like saying that thinking, oh my gosh, people are going to be coming for me. Slap your bum when you're little. But anyways,
yes,
point being is people are looking, my clients are specifically looking to grow as a business owner or as a professional, but they typically know that there's internal stuff that's happening. They're anxious all the time. I had one client, she worked in insurance, owned an insurance company. She was literally like on her phone on our first call. And I was like, hey, could you just put your phone down for like 30 minutes? And she just started to sob. She was like, I don't even know who I am, not looking at my email. So these people are the people that are like, I've achieved things, but something's going on the inside. So that's what I work with. We kind of sort your inside out. Then your everything on the outside always shows up. And how you can work with me. So right now, if people wanted to try, I just released this new offer. I'm excited about it. It's $99. So in the past, I would say, you'd come into my mastermind or you'd come into one-on-one, and those are thousands of dollars of packages. So this is $99. It's 4 modules. So I just felt like people in the online space, when I log into like a pre-recorded training session and it's like a 2-hour thing, I'm like, oh, okay, that's never going to happen for me. So all of these modules are anywhere from like 11 minutes, the longest one's a little over 30 minutes. And it's about showing you how your survival mode, so showing you how all those great high achieving things really worked for you, how all of those identities were really, really good for you, and how they're no longer serving you, and then what you can do about it. So it's $99. And then there's 4 breathwork sessions. So if you're new to breathwork, there's 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 20 minutes, and 30 minutes. So you can use those as a way to start integrating. And then my team was like, don't do this. And I was like, I'm doing it. So everyone that comes, there's 4 live group coaching sessions. So every Friday there, you see me and you can bring to me anything that you're like, hey, this came up during a breathwork session, or hey, you know what? I thought I really wanted to do this work. I don't, just kidding. And we can explore that. So it's this really live, great way for you to make sure that you're getting clear about who you are authentically, and that you do have that safe space and community. And so it's called the Mini Method. I just launched it. It's evergreen. You can buy it anytime. You'll see me every Friday. The Fridays are succinct. So, but it's always on my calendar. And then private mentorship. So, and that's me in your life with you, doing life with you. So you talk to me every day. There's 3 calls per month. We have specific goals. We're tracking your goals, but you're also doing breath work. That's where I come in and co-pilot your business with you, and allow you. I joke like, hey, I'm going to drive the plane. You need to get up, get some snacks, go to the bathroom, assess what the heck is going on in the cabin. There might be a fire back there, and I'm going to just handle this for a minute, and then we switch destinations, we land the plane, you get to decide who you want to be after that. So, and that's typically for people that are more experienced entrepreneurs or professionals, that, like we've said, that kind of did everything right, and they're in some self-sabotaging behavior, or they know it's time for more and they don't know where to go.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. So good. So amazing. It's got to be like so fulfilling too, to know that you're really changing these, like helping them to change their lives.
I love, like, this is my calling. Like, and I was so scared in 2018 when I was like, I don't think I like real estate anymore,
Mhm.
because it was such an identity. And I was kind of this prodigy because I had mastered how to cold call. And so I could go anywhere and pick up the phone and drive business. Like, it was like this thing. And it took a good year. It took that long for me to
Yeah.
really, when you're like, well, what do you do? It's like, it's not a fast process. It's got to be a moment of like, okay, change is coming and I can handle it. And it took a
Mhm.
while before I actually was able to take the steps.
Wow, amazing. Well, this has been so great. I'm so happy to connect with you. Where can everyone connect with you and find you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, Robyn, before we hit record, said that she's going to put together some communities in the Fort Worth area. I'm in Houston. So when she does that, we're all holding Robyn accountable to what she's saying. I'm going to drive up there and do the breath work. So we're going to meet people in person. We're
Yes,
excited about it. And
yes.
then also, you can find me on Instagram. That's where I hang out the most. It's at the_Sophie.Jones. So at the_Sophie.Jones. You can also check out my website at Sophie Jones SC. I'm going to send Robyn over a free breathwork experience for everybody and also the link for the mini method. And send me a DM. I'm approachable. I'm friendly. I love to meet people. Robyn and I met online. So,
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'd love to meet you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.